Hello.
We have to wait a second for it to build the audience. So, we just wanted to, oh, sorry. Let's readjust a little bit. Oh, you okay?
I'm good.
Charlie is recovering from
Pneumonia.
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 He's feeling okay today, but he still has the
better.
cough. So,
Bad cough.
yeah. Want to say hi?
Hello.
So we're just wanted to kind of deliver a message of
Get some of my toys.
okay, hope and inspiration for all the gender creative and transgender children out there. Okay, I'm Marty. This is my husband,
Matt.
and our son Charlie, who is gender creative and identifies as part of the LGBTQ plus community. Just wanted to make people aware of a couple of things that have come to light in a secret Facebook group that I run, which is also a group that we run at the LGBT Center. It's called SEARCH, which stands for Safe Environment for the Acceptance of Rainbow Children. There were some really helpful articles that some of our members have shared in our group, but since it's a secret group, I realized that not everybody has access to these articles and we can't share them from our group. But recently there's been some stuff going around on social media released from the American College of Pediatrics. Is that what it's called? American College. Anyway, disregard that information because it is talking about how they do not support transgender children living as their authentic gender. If you want to see the research and the real scientific evidence on the best outcomes for transgender and gender non-conforming or gender diverse children, look to the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP. If you're reading information coming from some other source other than them, it is probably not going to be best practice. So here's the statement that the AAP has released protecting transgender youth from the horrible guidance that's coming from the White House right now under 45. The American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, opposes guidance issued last night by the Departments of Justice and Education that eliminate protections for transgender youth in public schools, no longer allowing them to use restrooms corresponding with their gender identity. Transgender children are already at increased risk for violence, bullying, harassment, and suicide. The numbers on that are staggering, I might add. They may be more prone to depression and engaging in self-harm. These children need acceptance and affirmation, not stigmatization. As a result of last night's action, this was several days ago, by the Departments of Justice and Education, the simple act of using the restroom may subject transgender students to further harm. Policies excluding transgender youth from facilities consistent with their gender identity have detrimental effects on their physical and their mental health, safety, and well-being. No child deserves to feel this way, especially within the walls of their own school. The federal guidance withdrawing and rescinding protections from transgender students, those are the ones that President Obama set into motion, sends a message of exclusion and intolerance, which transgender students encounter enough already on their day-to-day lives. The AAP voices our strong opposition to the decision by the Departments of Justice and Education and renews our support for the legal protections offered through Title IX. Title IX is having to do with public school funding, and Obama extended during his presidency that umbrella to include the rights of gender under that whole issuance of sexual orientation discrimination or gender discrimination. So they are still protected. So regardless of what 45 does, I read somewhere a statement that I really liked that said that he is mistaking executive orders with accomplishments. He doesn't understand that an executive order doesn't just make it happen. The AAP, and from what we have found in pretty much every school community that we've talked to, including our own where Charlie goes, the schools want to best serve these children and be up to date on best practices. And they're going to follow what the AAP recommends rather than issuance that's coming from the White House. I can't officially say that on behalf of any public school system, but it is my personal experience that when it's left up to principals of their own schools, they are going to do right by the children. Now, this is not the case in every city and every state. As we know, Gavin Grimm right now is fighting an uphill battle, which I believe he's going to win. He is absolutely going to win. Unfortunately, we have to waste time and resources for him fighting these ridiculous battles on the way there. So there's that. Also, I wanted to let people know that another wonderful resource is genderspectrum.org. They're huge advocates and they put out all kinds of helpful, wonderful information. Excuse me one second. And I wanted to let you know that on Thursday, is it Thursday night? Wait, let me double check. They are doing on Tuesday, February 28th, 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific time, 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. They are doing a Q&A broadcast on, or broadcast live on the Gender Spectrum's Facebook page. So if you visit their page, 4 p.m. Eastern time, which is our time here, you can participate in the broadcast. You can also submit questions to them ahead of time, but they've put together a panel of legal and educational experts who will be speaking to questions regarding transgender students in the educational setting. They state that they will be answering questions such as what are the implications for transgender and non-binary, which is what Charlie identifies as right now, feeling neither male nor female, but something that transcends both.
And I try to tell people that, and I'm confident while I tell people that.
And that makes all the difference, is having confidence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
also,
go ahead.
Alex killed a pig man.
Charlie just had a birthday, so we've got some toys over here. But anyway, what are the implications for transgender and non-binary students and the schools which they attend? How can the right to a safe learning environment be protected in the absence of federal guidelines? What does this mean for states with protections in place and for those that do not? They are strongly encouraging people to send questions in advance, as that would allow them to cover as many possible topics as possible. You don't have to have a Facebook account to watch the Gender Spectrum's live feed from Facebook, nor do you need a Facebook account to watch our little Facebook live feeds that we do. Anybody can watch them because they're made public. Oh, you just got a birthday message, Charlie.
Oh, thank you, Riley. I don't know how to say your last name. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That was really sweet. He just celebrated a birthday on the 21st, and he's down with a pretty bad case of pneumonia.
It's going away.
Yes, it is going away, and he's getting better. All right, so I shared with you the AAP the AAP statement protecting transgender youth. Also, the resource of genderspectrum.org, where you can participate in their live broadcast on February 28th. The Gender Spectrum also lists all of these statements of support. And this is to back up what I said earlier about how I believe that schools are going to do the right thing regardless of whatever federal guidance comes out. There are examples on Gender Spectrum here Statements of support from the following school systems: Broward County, Florida; Boston, Massachusetts; California Department of Education; Chicago Public Schools; Denver Public Schools; Washington, D.C. Public Schools; Fairfax County, Virginia Public Schools; Houston Independent School District in Texas; Los Angeles Unified School District, California; Madison Metropolitan School District in Wisconsin; Minneapolis Public Schools, Minnesota; Montgomery County Public Schools, Maryland; New York City Department of Education; Oregon Department of Education; Philadelphia Public Schools in Pennsylvania; Pittsburgh Public Schools; Portland Public Schools, Oregon; Rhode Island Department of Education; St. Paul Public Schools, Minnesota; Tulsa Public Schools, Oklahoma; and Washington State Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. So far, and that's just in a few days, these are the school systems that have released statements of support for gender nonconforming, gender creative, non-binary, and transgender students. They say things like, our state laws are explicit. We must not discriminate against our students, no matter their gender identity or sexual orientation. And that's whether it's perceived or actual. And working in the school system myself, I can say that every teacher wants to make sure that every student in their class is accepted and loved and not harassed and allowed to just be and exist. So I can feel confident speaking on behalf of pretty much all teachers that we take care of the kids in our classrooms. We make sure that everyone feels safe. Of course, there is going to be teasing that happens mostly in sneaky ways and in places where maybe the teachers can't observe, such as the bathrooms, what this whole argument is about. And it's not the transgender kids or transgender individuals who are opposing the problem. It is cisgender, straight men causing problems, and typically not in public restrooms. So let me just go on my little soapbox here for a minute to say this one thing, because I've participated in a whole lot of online arguments and debates about this issue. The issue where people say, but we need to protect our women and children from all of those sexual deviant predators that are going to attack them. And if there's a man in a dress coming into the bathroom, you better believe I'm going to protect my wife and daughter. This makes me angry to no extent. First of all, because the type of men who would commit sexual assault against a woman in a public bathroom or in public in general are cisgender straight men who have a hatred of women, and it does not fit the psychological profile that they would ever dress up in women's clothing and go out in public that way because of their intense hatred for women. Yes, question? Yes, absolutely. But let me finish my little rant here first. Just go ahead and say what you wanted to say while I take some water.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer?
Charlie is happy to do a Q&A, so chime in and we'll be checking if you have questions. But back to my little soapbox issue. Again, the type of men who commit sexual assault are men that have a deep hatred of women. And again, to reiterate the point, doesn't fit the psychological profile that they would dress up in women's clothing and go anywhere in public dressed like that because of their intense hatred of women and desire to humiliate them and otherwise abuse them. Furthermore, the type of children who are harmed sexually or otherwise by these sick, perverted individuals are more often than not someone known and trusted by the family, someone that the child loves or likes very much, sometimes even a family member, and they are committing these acts not in public bathrooms, but in places of trust, like the back rooms of scout meetings or some churches even, or the taekwondo studio at night. It's that type of place where these are occurring. So can we please, just once and for all,
There's a question.
get rid of the stranger in the bathroom, the predator stranger in the bathroom myth, because that's all that it is, and it is a way to cover up transphobia.
Okay,
So Charlie would like to answer
Right.
a question.
So, from Ruth Harper, he says, I'd really like to know what you
Come over this
want
way.
to be when you grow up. That's hard. I want to be 3 different things.
Wait. Come over. You're not in the screen.
I want to be 3 different things.
Sorry.
But if I had to choose one, I'd probably say an animator. I've always wanted to animate. And my favorite animal are dogs. They're so darn cute.
They really are. What's the other 2 things that you want to be?
She just said, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Oh, that's your okay. I thought you said you had 3 things you wanted to do.
I had 3 things I want to be when I grow up.
Sometimes it changes.
Yeah.
Come into the screen so they can see you. What are the other 2 things? No? Okay, that's all right. He doesn't want to say the other 2 things right now. Okay. Oh, and his favorite animal, you answered that, didn't you? You said dogs. Yeah. Okay. There's also some info on gender spectrum regarding Title IX, if you'd like to read more about that. And then I had a couple of questions on my one of my pages on Facebook. I think it was one of those pages where a couple of people chimed in with questions. So I'm going to attempt to answer those right now. The first question we received. Oh, this was on Charlie's fan page. So Charlie does have a fan page. It is Charlie, the gender creative kid. We created a fan page for him at advice from a couple of our lawyer friends who said that this would be the best way for him to receive the positive messages of love that were overflowing after his story went viral. He is the justice kid, if you didn't know already. We wrote an open letter to Justice thanking them for letting them have such a or letting Charlie
Am I known for that?
Yeah, you kind of are.
Wait, like Adair when she wrote the letter to
Yeah, totally.
Also, Adair used to be my friend, that girl who did the Vineyard Vines thing.
Yes.
I used to be her friend.
You're still friends. You just don't really see each other.
I don't really see her.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay, so the 2 questions that were asked was, have there been problems with Charlie or others and the amount of publicity with HB2? No, we haven't had any problems. Fortunately, we've been able to say, well, all of the hate mail that comes, because I'm a public advocate, it comes to me, not to Charlie. So if anything, he gets tons and tons of love mail. He just, not too long ago, got a whole package of love mail
From a school.
from a school in, what was it, San Jose or
I don't remember.
San Mateo, in California, from the entire high school GSA. And they wrote Charlie, they each have done a custom made card with messages of love and support. So that's the type of thing that has been happening for Charlie ever since his story went viral. We haven't had any problems with the amount of publicity. If anything, it's actually yielded some pretty cool results. Like we've gotten to know some awesome people, and Charlie has made tons of new friends. Yeah.
Alright, so, I wasn't going to stay for that long. I was just wondering, before I go, does anybody else have any questions? Like, seriously, just say your questions, ask your questions now so I can answer them.
Okay.
Alright, here's a question. My question would be, would you be starting puberty blockers? Yes, I was actually thinking of doing that. So that, yeah.
Okay, the question is,
Like,
would you, Charlie, be starting puberty blockers so that way if you ever decide to go one way or the other, male or female, it would be easier?
yeah.
Charlie has recently expressed to me that this is an interest of his. We do have an appointment with the Duke
When is that again?
Child and Adolescent Gender Center.
When is it?
It's next month. They have like a 4-week waiting list at least. So there's an answer to that question. Nothing is set in stone. We're just looking at options. That's all. And let's see if there's any other questions. Oh, wait. Read what Roxy says here.
Has been so hard for me because I am transgender too, and this president, it's turning everyone to fight. I don't know what that means.
Okay, what that means is that you know how we've talked about the stuff that's coming out of the White House, the hate speech. It's dividing families, it's dividing friends, it's making people, it's very divisive and destructive hate speech coming from this administration right now. And I want to get back to that point in just a minute, Roxy, because it's important. And I'm going to let Charlie answer this last question.
I don't know if that's the last question.
Oh, sorry. Let's see.
Mom.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I won't touch it. I'll let you do it.
Hi, Charlie. Hi, I'm Kylie. Hello, Kylie.
Kyle.
Kyle. Once upon a time, I was a teacher. From your point of view, what can we, as LGBTQ adults, do to encourage and support you and kids like you outside the school system?
So think of it, sit up a little bit so you're in the dark there. Think about that question, Charlie, like what is most helpful for you in your school? What has been the most helpful thing for just letting you be you?
Don't care what other people say and just be you and have the confidence to be yourself.
What do you think about, you know how teachers sometimes split you up by boys versus girls?
That is what I hate in schools. They need to change that. They just say, okay, go wherever you want. They shouldn't pair you up like, okay, you're going to be in the boys and you're going to be in the girls. And I'm splitting you up. Seriously? That's stupid. Why do people do that?
Why do people do that?
Yeah.
Because
we should just be who we want to be. We should just express ourselves.
So gender segregation is one of those things that happens in schools a lot, Kyle, to answer your question. And it's just because we've been doing it forever and it's just so easy and it's just so like second nature that we always address kids as all right, boys over here, be quiet, or girls over there, stand up.
And I have a story, because this happened to me one time.
All right, and don't use names, though.
I will not use names.
Okay. Come over here.
All right. So we were about to go to recess, and my teacher had to leave early because she was sick. She has pneumonia, too. She is currently in the hospital. Lots of love. Lots of love for her.
We love Charlie's teacher. She's awesome.
She's so nice. And basically what happened was we were getting divided up into boy and girls. And she said, okay, girls go to, can I
just say this classroom. And
this classroom, and then boys go to this classroom. So I asked, well, where do I go? And she said, with like this look on her face, like, you go with the boys. And I was just like, oh, okay. So I didn't dare to argue.
To be fair, again.
But I didn't stick up for myself.
And that's okay. It was a learning opportunity for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Because teachers, I mean, up until this point, Charlie has been, well, not cisgender, but he hasn't ever identified as a girl. So Charlie is, I guess, for the first time, it was last year when, why is it dark? What's happening here?
I have no idea, but I'm trying to do something.
Sorry. So Charlie first identified as gender creative last year. And now it's kind of looking more like Charlie is non-binary, maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of letting him figure out. That's like neither male nor female.
That's what I am.
I don't know what. Hang on, let me try to figure out why there is no light on this. Oops, sorry. I don't know. Anyway, I'll just hold it. There we go. Okay. What was I saying? Totally lost my train of thought.
You're talking about, like, you don't know if I was, like, this gender.
Oh, right. So Charlie has more recently expressed that he feels non-binary. In fact, Charlie has asked that we use they, them, theirs
That was a long time
pronouns.
ago.
Yeah, and I have been horrible about that. I'm so inconsistent, and I'm very sorry about that. Unfortunately, Charlie is very forgiving and doesn't care like an awful lot about pronouns. But the school thing where we segregate kids by gender, you might think that what's the big deal? Charlie is just one person. Oh well, if Charlie's feelings get hurt for not going or not getting to go with the girls, whatever, that's just one kid. But the truth of the matter is, we don't know how many kids in that classroom might be non-binary. It's not something usually that they just wake up in adolescence and realize. Most of these kids have known since birth, or not birth, excuse me, since the time they could communicate, which is around 2.5 to 3 years old.
I'm sorry to say, but I'm going to go.
That's okay.
I am sorry.
You're fine. I know you're tired, and thank you for being here.
I'm not tired.
Oh, you're not?
I'd
okay.
be sorries.
Oh, here's a compliment though. Your hair's looking good. Thank you. Hi, Charlie, from us in Australia. They separate gender at my son's school too. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So anyway, what I want to say about that is that it is kind of an outdated practice to gender segregate, and it is unfortunate and uncomfortable for the kids who identify as non-binary or even if they're maybe very early in the transgender stages. So if that would be my one message to educators, is that if we could do away with gender segregation, that would be awesome, because we just shouldn't do that any more than we would do splitting up kids by race or ethnicity or segregating them in any other way which they were born. So also you have intersex people who do exist, whether they have ambiguous genitalia at birth or they're born with both a penis and ovaries or a vagina and testes. It happens. And sometimes these children at birth are left up to the parents' discretion to decide whether the child will live as male or female. Sometimes there's even genital mutilation in the form of surgery that's done to make these kids more, conforming for appearance sake. And then there are a lot more parents who are now deciding we're going to let our child grow up and figure it out, because it's not really our place as parents to decide that part of their life. So these people do exist. And my one promise to you, wherever you are, is that there's absolutely someone who is transgender that's at your place of work or your school, walking by you in the park, wherever, and you have no idea. You have no idea. Just trust me on that. They're everywhere. So most of them as children are not out because most of the time their parents don't let them. They kind of force them into a place of hiding where maybe that does stifle some short-term kid-type bullying and teasing, but the long-term results are extremely detrimental. These are the children who grow up to self-harm or commit suicide because they wake up when they're 20-something and realize that their whole life has been a lie. So it's just that parents are now realizing that it's more important that we kind of follow our children's lead and let them reveal who they are. Not to say that you can't get excited over finding out you're having a girl or a boy. I am not saying that at all. I was absolutely one of those parents who wanted to know the gender of my babies when I was pregnant, and I did find out. I was super excited to have both a boy and a girl, and when Charlie came around, it was icing on the cake, whatever we got. Little did we know that Charlie would be non-binary, which is something I was not even aware of when I gave birth to him back in 2006. But the example that Charlie spoke of that happened at his school, this was a complete, we're not mad or like upset or anything. This is just what happens. And this is what we'd like teachers to be aware of, and educators in general, that when you segregate kids by gender, if you have a non-binary kid, whether you know it or not, in your classroom, that is a huge blow to them. If they feel like, I'm not a boy and I'm not a girl, but I'm being forced to choose. And for Charlie's sake, he honestly, if they have to be gender segregated, he would rather go with the girls, because those are who he identifies with more. He's not comfortable with the boys. He feels safer with the girls. He feels more with his tribe and his people when he's with the girls. So it is what it is. And I would love it if we could maybe get to a point, and I know a lot of school systems are already taking measures to address their students as scholars, or even students, anything other than boys and girls, because you're leaving out a percentage of the population when you address people that way. So, you know, what Charlie learned from that incident was that, oh, okay, maybe all that I really needed to do was tell my teacher, is it okay if I go with the girls instead of the boys this time, because that's where I'm more comfortable. And it's just a matter of him learning better ways and more powerful ways to advocate for himself. Oh, so I am guilty. I line my kids up, boy, girl. Yep. Simply because of behaviors and splitting them up. With the challenging group of kids I have this year, I need all the help I can get. Give me some, I don't know, the comment trails off and I can't see the rest, but I'm guessing you're asking for some examples of how can we line kids up? How can we fairly and evenly split kids up and keep kids that don't need to be together away from each other in line? My answer to that is that there's a whole bunch of different ways you can split kids up. You can, and I know this is a pain, and this is one of those things you have to do at the beginning of the year, but you can give everybody an assigned number and then they line up in number order, or you can have them line up by alphabetical name, like everyone with the last name starting A through M line up, everyone with the last name N through Z line up. You can split them up by birth month. You can split them up by the color of their shoes. You can split them up by hair color even. And those kids that you know just absolutely don't need to be together in line, I call it like I see it. If I have two of those kids, I'm like, you two can't be together, so-and-so get between you. But I think it's wise not to say split them up by boys and girls, because you never know about that one non-binary kid that you might have in your class who really internalizes that. And every time they hear boys and girls, they know I don't fit either one of those categories. And it's another blow for their psyche. And it's another way that our society very subtly shifts in a message of you don't fit in anywhere. And they internalize that. And they carry that with them for a lifetime. So in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, but I think it's better to, while it might be a little bit harder for us as teachers because we're so used to the boy-girl thing, and it's just easy to do that, and it's second nature. It's worth a little bit of extra work to find other ways to split them up, even if it is just for that one non-binary kid in your class, even if it's just that one. Because one thing I can promise is that these kids are not going away. This is not, the last that you're going to hear about this wave of the population. We are just going to have more and more, I believe, of gender non-conforming and gender diverse and transgender children coming forward and being open about who they are, as parents like myself and my husband become more aware of best practices and treating them so that they grow up to become fully functioning, authentic adults who are not in hiding and not living a life full of shame and guilt. I think sometimes too, teachers will separate kids in the cafeteria. Like, for some reason, I don't know, I guess we think that if we put them boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, oh, well, I guess a boy is not going to be as likely to talk to a girl as he is if he was sitting next to another boy. But again, that's just like one of those outdated myths that we're just so used to doing, and we do it on autopilot. Because in reality, all except for maybe fourth grade, which has been my experience with all three kids, boys and girls like each other equally well. And yeah, for all three of my kids, I'm thinking it was fourth grade was the year that it was like, ew, boys, cooties, or ew, girls suck, or whatever. But after fourth grade, like back to fifth grade with all three of my kids, that was when they had both male and female friends. And with Charlie identifying as non-binary right now, but as someone who would rather hang out and associate with girls, it really complicates it even further. We talk about this in the search group that I run. It's like the grass is always greener on the other side. Parents of trans kids wish that their kids were just gender creative because the battles would be less. And parents of gender creative and non-binary kids, we wish that our kids would just pick a gender and live as that. It's this in-between kind of area where it's very, very hard for people to understand. All right, we have another comment. The thing is, you can never know if you have a non-binary kid in your class, because if you have one, they may not know it themselves yet. Yes, this is why it's important not to separate kids based on gender. I totally agree that there are kids who don't realize it yet. However, I think that there are a lot of kids who do know it, and they do know. They may not understand the terminology. They may not understand that that there's a word that fits them. Charlie didn't know until the middle of fourth grade that gender creative was a term he could identify with. And he did. And when he discovered that, it was like his whole world opened up, and his anxiety and depression went almost 100% away. So yes, it is very true that a lot of kids don't know or aren't aware yet, but they don't know themselves yet. But I do believe that there is at least an equal amount of kids who do know that for whatever reason, they don't match either the male or female box that we try to put them in. I just wrote a piece for Huffington Post about this. It just went up last night. Oh, thank you for that clarification, Leonard. I'm non-binary, and I only knew it around 22 to 23 years old. So I wonder, is that because is there any reason that you would attribute that to? Were your parents, were you exposed to the LGBTQ community growing up? Were you ever having any type of feelings of not fitting in or feeling somehow different and couldn't put a finger on it? Were there any indications, or were you one of the people who really just truly woke up and said, you know what, this is what I am? I would just be curious to know, because I want to learn as much as I can too. I'm still very much in the process of learning. But I think that there's a lot of ways that we can reinforce confidence in our children, whether they are your stereotypical rough and tumble boy who you never know might become transgender one day. Look at Bruce Jenner. Who knew? I started questioning my assigned gender around teenage. Okay, yeah. So you did have some indications that you were questioning, which I know a lot of adolescents and teens go through, is that questioning phase. One thing about a lot of transgender people that is another myth is that they just kind of wake up and choose one day that they want to live as a different gender, and that's really based on the reading and research that I've done. That's not typically the case. It is that they kind of always knew that they were in the wrong body, but they kept quiet about it. They stayed in the closet. They didn't dare tell anyone because it was not something that was celebrated or embraced. Parents wanted the children to hide that part of themselves for their own protection. And people like me are just trying to change the dialogue now. And we're trying to say, this is who my kid is. There's no reason why they should be hiding in the closet. And society is the group that needs to do the changing, not my kid. My kid doesn't need to change his mannerisms, his voice, the way he dresses to make other people happy or comfortable. But society needs to change and learn how to not be bullies in the first place. Society is the one that needs to change and understand that people's differences should be celebrated and not ostracized. As long as you're not hurting someone, it's all good. I mean, if you're raising a serial killer who's torturing animals and burning things and showing up all those red flags for future serial killer, serial rapist type behaviors, yeah, that's probably not something you want to embrace. But if it's a child who's just expressing an authentic gender, they're not hurting anyone. I so wish that I could find a way to put it into words for people to understand better. But I certainly had kids that I hung out with, and this is what I had mentioned in my HuffPost piece. I had kids that I hung out with in elementary school, boys who were seen as effeminate, and girls who were seen as butch, for lack of better terminology back then. They were called horrible names. The boys were labeled faggot as early as 3rd grade, whether they were sexually identifying or not, and most kids are not by 3rd grade. But I remember boys being called faggot because they might have acted a little bit more feminine. And I remember girls, one girl in particular who everyone called her Peppermint Patty from the Peanuts cartoon, because they thought that that's who she resembled and that's who she acted like. They thought she was butch. She was called lesbo by the time we got into middle school. So these people have always been around. It's not something new. And yeah, they may not know it themselves, but they certainly know when they're being bullied, and they certainly know and learn how to develop coping mechanisms. But we really need to change the culture so that these kids don't have to develop coping mechanisms and they can be proud of who they are. We need to be giving them the tools to have self-confidence, because ultimately that's what's going to attract other people to them and distract the bullies, is if they have enough confidence to be who they are. I had one last question here on Charlie's fan page, and it was, is there a summer camp for gender creative kids? And I am so happy to say that yes, there is. I don't know about like other states and other cities, but here in North Carolina, we have Girls Rock NC. I really wish that I could get Charlie to commit to doing this camp, because I think that Charlie would love it. But they are described as an organization in Central NC that works to empower girls, women, and folks of marginalized genders through creative expression to be confident and engaged members of their communities. We accomplish this by focusing on creativity, confidence, and collaboration. In their 13 years of programming, they've held nearly 100 music programs. They are committed to social justice, and they seek to amplify the voices of those traditionally marginalized, specifically transgender females and or anyone who identifies as female. So this sounds like just the best program ever. It sounds like what they do is they have a whole lot of fun, but they also get to real life practice working with musicians. They learn how to write, how to perform, how to have self-confidence, how to play an instrument, and they do a whole lot more. Check them out, www.girlsrocknc.org. Still trying to talk Charlie into it because I'd really love for him to go there. But it just sounds like an awesome, awesome camp. All right, I think those were the only questions that I had left to answer. So right before I close out, I'm going to check one more time to see if there are any more questions. Kyle says, I'm still figuring myself out. I think it's a continual process. Yes, I agree, especially because of circumstances of my childhood. Okay. Still figuring out where I fall on the spectrum. All right. I'm sorry. For some reason, I'm not able to see like the full comments. I'm going to... No, that doesn't work. I got to learn how to use technology better. Whoops. Sorry. Okay. This is a really good point that you're bringing up, Kyle. Got into another like online, not debate, but conversation with some folks yesterday over using words like transgendered with an ED on the end. And your point, what you're saying here was my point exactly, is that for some transgender people, transitioning is a lifelong process. So transgender is an adjective. It's not a verb or a noun. It's not something you can put into past tense and put an ED on the end of it. Yet I hear and see people doing this all the time, using the word transgendered. And I think that that is problematic for the community because of what Kyle just said here. It's a continual process. And if you refer to someone as being transgendered, that implies a definitive point in time in which the process ended or stopped or finalized. And it is a lifelong process for some people. So I think we have to be really, really careful with the language that we use. And I'm still learning all the right language to use myself. And it's hard. It's really hard. I get it. Trust me, I get it. You've heard me refer to Charlie as he a million times, even though Charlie prefers they, them. I just have to work on it and keep working on it. Yes, and the word transgenders, right. So I shared a meme on Facebook. I have a Gender 101 album where I just put memes that I come across that have like statistics or things that I like to share. And this one actually referred to transgender people as transgenders, which again is one of those things that we try not to say because we don't say the gays or the straights or the heterosexuals. It just makes it sound like that group is victimized or targeted or other than or less than. So the best way to address transgender people is transgender people. You can say that someone has transitioned, but not that they are transgendered. So yeah, just a little bit of thoughts on language. And it's something that, again, I'm still working on, and so is my family. And we have a long way to go. All right, well, I am going to close out for today and take Charlie to spend his birthday money. He's very excited about doing that and picking out some new toys and clothing items. Thank you all for submitting questions and for being with us today. You can always catch this video later on my blog, www.gendercreativelife.com. We also have a YouTube channel called Gender Creative Life where these videos are stored as well. Until next time, I hope that you are well. I hope that you take care of each other and seek to educate people whenever you have the opportunity. And keep sending me or shooting me some questions, because I will, whenever I get a stack of them, I will do another Facebook Live. All right, thanks everybody, and be good to one another. Bye.